Good morning. This is Teacher on the Radio from Cookeville, Tennessee, and we're pre-recording an interview segment for our episode that's going to drop on Tuesday, November the 25th. So happy almost end of the semester. Happy Thanksgiving break. And I know in a lot of big cities, they always have like a really good rock show to go to the Friday or Saturday after Thanksgiving. And it's billed as like, get out of your parents' house and rock out with your high school friends. And we're doing that in Cookeville on Saturday, November the 29th at Mean Mel's, which is our venue on North 111 between Cookeville, Allgood area and on your way to Livingston. But before we get there, the curator and the headlining artist of that fantastic show is Cookeville recording artist Dan Spencer. Dan Spencer's agreed to come online and get in the studio with the Teach this morning. Good morning, Dan. How's it going?
Good. How are you? Happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm really, really excited to have finally made your acquaintance. You're somebody where you're like, oh, I've heard of him. Oh, I heard he's cool. Oh, let me go listen to a song. Oh, that was pretty good. And then all of a sudden, like all I can think about is Dan Spencer. So you just dropped a brand new album a couple days ago called Weave Your Web Liar Man. And you've got several albums out wherever people get their music. But you've been kind of in the Cookeville, Murfreesboro music scene for a lot longer than I've known about you. So let's get the Dan Spencer backstory. Let's get your origin story and how you found your way to Cookeville and why you've decided to stay in Cookeville and be Cookeville based when you could easily go to all those places like Asheville, North Carolina, Brooklyn, New York, Nashville, Tennessee. I mean, these are places that are cool. Cookeville's not cool. I mean, let's just be real. Cookeville's kind of weird, and we're definitely like in the heart of the Bible Belt and kind of a little bit more rural, and we don't have the market. Whatever, we don't have the Spin magazine hasn't done a cover story on the Cookeville music scene yet, but you might change that. So give me a little bit of the story.
Sure, yeah. So I grew up in Smyrna, Tennessee, right, kind of between Nashville and Murfreesboro, and by the end of high school, was going to a lot of house shows in Murfreesboro, namely, which still has a really vibrant house show scene. Where I met a lot of people, Blake Marlowe, namely, who drugged me to Cookeville. Essentially, our bands played together, and he came out here to go to Tech, and so I would come out here to go to shows, to play shows, and eventually I just kind of became friends with the group out here. And one day, someone needed a roommate in 2015, 10 years ago, and I moved here for the first time. But I've always loved it here. Even when I, didn't live here, I would visit friends and spend weekends here. And I don't know, something about it. I grew up in a proper suburb, and just kind of being in a little more rural area. Something really drew me to it. And there was also lots of eccentrics, and I got into the most experimental music that I like to this day because of people I met in Cookeville. And
So a lot of people don't know the history of old weird Cookeville, and it's very underground. So why don't we since we've kind of gone here, why don't we do a little bit of a framing device here? So you mentioned Blake Marlowe. He's currently in a band called The Dog's Body, and he was in a band called Commander King before that. He ran a venue for a short while off the square called the Arlington Cemetery. But what are some of the bands and some of the places that you were going in Cookeville 10 years ago that made this seem like, and also for people who don't know, Smyrna, Tennessee, you call it a suburb, but it's kind of like, isn't it like a Murfreesboro and Nashville suburb? It's kind of like trapped between Murfreesboro and Nashville.
Yeah, it's pretty much known for it's kind of looming in the background of the city is a Willy Wonka-esque Nissan factory. So there's this giant factory that people travel all around the state to visit, and then it has a small private airport and a National Guard base, and that's pretty much what Smyrna is known for. But yeah, it's right. It borders Murfreesboro, but just 20 so minutes or so from Nashville. So grew up with a lot of music, a lot of house shows, a lot of DIY stuff. But when I got to Cookeville, there was so under Jones Antiques, there is a basement that we used to do shows out of. And it was a legit space. A bathroom was built eventually. There was a stage. murals, and Blake, namely, um, booked bands from Nashville, from across the country. Um, just bands we would meet, kind of touring in the DIY circuit around the country, really. But sometimes there'd be a show at Char, which I don't think they've had live music like that in a long, long time. But there was always house shows, right on the square, kind of above where Jamie Sweets is. There's an apartment, um, where we would do shows. I know that a little bit before my time, there's an apartment above World Foods where there were house shows. Um, but back in those days, there was a lot of bands like Commander Keen for sure leading the charge. Silver Kit, who's kind of making a resurgence and actually playing Mean Mel's tomorrow. Um, that was also around the time. So there was a band called Hellbender from Cookeville. That was kind of a psych blues rock band. And some of those members have gone on to play with All Them Witches, to record Inner Arma, gone on to do crazy things. Even before that, there was a very unique band from Cookeville called the Hose Mobile, whose members are, I still see at shows. Um, they toured with Primus. They made records with Steve Albini. Um, toured in Japan, and so there's always been a tilt towards the experimental and avant-garde with the people that live here. And I've always been fascinated psychologically with why that is. And maybe because the dominant culture is so straightforward, is so, kind of has the bumpers up as far as where you can go with art. And so when I moved out here and met people is when I started hearing of the Sun City Girls and Amps for Christ, and just a lot of these very, very experimental music.
Yeah, so Hellbender is not for the faint of heart, and it's definitely it pairs well with certain substances that I no longer have the privilege of indulging myself in. But I think something that we need to work on is we need to do an oral history of this, because I think it's really, and like make a website or a fanzine or something, because I think this is going to be lost to the dustbin of history. Like I was talking to a guy who's more in the jam band scene, and he was in like a phenomenal Cookeville jam band, like around 2004, that was like playing like the Fall Fun Fest. Now I know some people can't use the word phenomenal and jam band in the same sentence. We'll let those people be. But yeah, I think there's a richness to this. We've kind of gone in a different direction with this interview than I intended, because we're flying off the hip. So I'm going to actually stay in this lane for a minute. So is that's why you wanted to do Mean Mel's, and were you involved in Hicks? Do you want to tell a little bit about like so not only are you making your career, and we'll get back around to that in the next segment about your album and your career, but have you've decided to be a curator, a creator, a promoter. I've been in like DIY promotion for 40 years as like a hobby, in addition to like 10 other things I'm always doing. And it can be a grind, and it can be very unflattering and very demoralizing when you bust your ass on something and like 5 people show up. And everybody who's done this with any tenacity at all is going to at least have that one show that just completely bombed, and you're like, you're paying the band out of your pocket, and you basically feel like a POS, and like nobody loves you. And like, why am I sacrificing for the scene, man? Nobody appreciates. So, but we needed a venue, and we just got the Uncle Club just got access to that Wesley Arena, which I just showed you the other day. But Mel's has been open only for a couple of months. Tell us about Mean Mel's, and tell us about why you've decided to invest so much of your time in actually building a community and a scene with like a venue and stuff.
Sure. So Mel has been Melissa Garrison, owns Craft Hair Society. We've been friends for a long, long time, and she had always kind of had a vague dream and concept of running a venue, and was trying to, at the demise of Hicks, um, you know, tried to get involved to reopen a new place. Um, and so with Hicks, basically, um, there was this GoFundMe, for the people in charge to start a new place. And, for whatever reason, life, and I mean, obviously it's an incredibly difficult task, as I now know fully. Um, a new place didn't happen. And so basically what we did is I came to Melissa and said, listen, I know bands all across the country, every regional act, every local act. Um, if we can start a venue, I can book it. And so that's what we did. And we got a hold of the people who were in charge of that GoFundMe at Hicks. And we said, hey, here's our plan. We want to do something certainly in the spirit of Hicks, especially the live music venue aspect of it. And would you guys let us become in control of that GoFundMe money? And so they said yes. And we started Mean Mel. So it is the spiritual predecessor to Hicks Farm Brewery. But from my end, basically, I tour as my main job. I'm playing music, and we're always meeting people all over the place who say, we want to come play where you play. And for a few years, we would just kind of go, sorry, there's really not a place to do that, especially for a touring band who's going to come through Cookeville. They're going to come on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night, typically. And a lot of the places around town really only want to do weekends, understandably. But we figured if we had a music venue that was a music venue first, with not a restaurant, without a giant bar with a liquor license, that we could host these people. And also because since Cookeville in Middle Tennessee is growing so much, everyone says we're going to be Mount Juliet or Murfreesboro in 10 or 15 years. I think a town of this size, especially with the college, is finally entering the arena where it can sustain a proper music video and not just a bar with live music.
This is Teacher on the Radio. This is a pre-recorded segment going out live on 88.5 FM, WTTU The Nest, your campus and community radio, nonprofit, DIY, left of the dial, that's run by the kids. They've let the teacher up in the booth for over 18 years. My guest today is Dan Spencer, music promoter, booker, chief booker, talent buyer, whatever you want to call it, at Mean Mel's out on Highway 111, just north of town, just north of Allgood on your way to Livingston. Just type Mean Mel's into your GPS and go see Dan Spencer rocking a humongous gig this Saturday night, the 29th of November. And from the recording, it's about 2 weeks from Saturday. You're going to go to this show. We're going to pack out the venue. We're going to play some music that Dan's helped me select for the show. And we're going to come back right after we hear a few songs. Thanks for listening to Teacher on the Radio. Hey gang, we're back. I'm gonna guess you heard a band. You probably heard something by Dan Spencer. He's got several albums out there. We're gonna pack today's show mostly with his music, but he's gonna maybe pick a few bands that are gonna be playing at Mean Mel's and maybe a few of his ride or die influences. We've already been at this for a good dozen minutes, Dan, and we haven't really got into actually your career. We started talking about the Cookeville scene, and I didn't realize what a repository of wisdom about the recent history of the Cookeville scene, what I like to call the old weird Cookeville, you are. So we're going to have to circle back on that, because I am committed that we should be creating a coffee table book, an archive, a living MP3 library, a YouTube archive, all the things, so we can document the weirdness that was Cookeville. I did see that Hellbender played First and Cedar once, which was a temporary venue that my friend Kyla ran, and I helped her get started, because when I was in Detroit back in the day, that's all we did is there's a garage, there's a church, there's an ugly storefront that's all cement. Let's put some amps and some chairs in there and spray paint the walls and throw a show. So what about your career? What's your elevator speech for your genre, even? And when in that, and once you've moved up here to Cookeville and you're being influenced by Blake and Commander Keen, when did you realize this is what I'm going to do for my life? And what is it that you make? Because I think it's kind of like country tainted indie. That this is kind of the music critics I was telling you about. Haydn, he's into Flory and some of these kind of country fueled punk bands. But what is it that you do, and how did you get here? And tell us maybe about just the record that just dropped as well, Weave Your Web, Liar Man. And that's 4 questions, and I apologize for packing them all in once. But just roll with the teach on this one.
Sure, I'll try to answer everything quickly. So I was in a band for pretty much the majority of my 20s called Pumpkin Seed, which features two Cookeville locals, Zach Ramsey and Connor Duty, and then our drummer. We don't need to talk about him, but he lives up in New York now. But so we were a local Cookeville band basically, and Blake Marlowe and Commander Keen, who also features Zach Ramsey and Matt Billings, um, took us on our first tour in 2016. And I don't think I was 2 days into that tour that might have been 2 weeks long or more. I don't think I was 2 days into that before I went, well, I'm gonna now go home and reshape every other aspect of my life to ensure that I get to do this as much as possible. And that's what I am still doing today. Um, so just fell in love with touring, immediately began learning how to book my own tours, um, which I'm still booking my own tours now, even though I've had some time not booking my own tours. But yeah, so that band existed from 2014 to 2019 or so. We broke up, not for any, nefarious reason. And I made a solo album under Dan Spencer. COVID happened a month after I recorded the album. It sat for 2 years. I eventually put it up online um, to basically for friends and family. I kind of dropped out of playing music and I enrolled in mortuary school and was working at Crestline Funeral Home here in Cookeville, learning how to be a funeral director and embalmer. Now, the very quick next portion is
Because punk rock and dead people go together, or something like
sure.
what?
Yeah, if you listen to enough Misfits albums, one day you might end up embalming someone.
I love this so much. We have to talk. We have so much we need to talk about because I'm obsessed with death, and my family is all going to go to oh God, I can't say the name of it now. The place in near Lebanon where they do no embalming. They just put you in the dirt. It's a green burial place.
Yeah.
It's also a nature preserve, and I can't. Larkspur is the name of it. Anyway, let's talk about funereal practices another time. So, is that the Country Fresh Flavor album that you're talking about?
Yeah, Bursting with Country Fresh Flavor.
Okay.
Yeah. So that album kind of came out. Then very quickly, the very, very, very short version of this is I met someone very randomly who walked into a pizza shop that I was managing in Nashville, who showed my music to someone who showed my music to someone who worked with Post Malone. And then that basic story has encapsulated the past 2 years of my musical journey. So last year we got to open for Post Malone on the F1 Trillion tour. We've written a handful of songs together that to this day haven't seen the light of day, but you never know. And just kind of became buddies with him and his circle, and we still are. And that's what I think a lot of people know about me in a vague sense.
So, you basically struggling indie performer doing a lot of other things, and then some doors open for you with a major touring, a stadium selling, genre bending touring artist. But take us up now to the recent record and talk to me a little bit more about your craft itself and the art itself. We've got the career piece down. You almost left the career, it sounds like, a few times, and now you're back. And I'm so glad that you were here for me to finally discover you in this next phase. But tell me about your songwriting and these last two albums, Return to Your Dark Master and Weave Your Web Lyre Man. It seems to be like some like really weird, like dark themes mixed in with like gospel music and folk music. I can't even like it's just like psycho gospel meets folk Billy. What folk punk Billy folk? What is it, Dan?
Yeah. I don't know. I like to genre hop. I like a lot of different styles of music, and I also love albums. So I tend to write one album in one genre. So Return to Your Dark Master is a very punk rock record, a very like kind of 2000s emo influenced. When I say emo, I mean, mainstream emo, Hot Topic music. If you're a fan of My Chemical Romance or Alkaline Trio, but maybe you grew up in the South and you like a a bend on a guitar that would be at home on an Allman Brothers record. You would probably like that. And then Weave Your Web Lyre Man came out November 7th. Definitely more on the folk side. Definitely more on the country side. You're going to hear more fiddle, banjo, a lot less drums. Yeah, those are the two quick pitches for those two records.
So when we go to see you play on Saturday night, and from the radio version of this is this coming up this Saturday, it's 2 weeks out from our pre-recording, which I am putting out on the internet, because you can't nowadays you have to post everything that used to be one post is 1,000 posts, and then maybe it's like throwing spaghetti at a wall. It's like a sticky note you're putting on somebody's nose in the grocery store. You can't. I hate that we have to do this, but we got to tell everybody there's a thing happening. Let's get some people up. You're playing with a full band on Saturday. You've got a bunch of other bands on the bill. Are we? What kind of a set are we going to get? Is it going to be all unreleased stuff? Is it going to be a greatest hits show? What do you got planned for the big Thanksgiving weekend throwdown at Mel's?
Sure, yeah. So that's November 29th. It's 2 days after Thanksgiving. It's 1 day after Black Friday on a Saturday. If you're tired of your family, come join us. That was kind of our thought with this. But that is going to be a set. Yeah, it's going to be a full band set. Certainly a greatest hits of sorts. Certainly some very new, unreleased material that we're going to play. Certainly the live debut of several songs of mine. But it'll definitely be more of a punk rock set. And with us, we have a phenomenal band, post-hardcore band from Nashville called Twin Stacks. And then we also have the locals Worm, who are from Sparta, young kids, very Melvins, Smashing Pumpkins, Nirvana influenced. And then Silver Kid, who we were just talking about, who's kind of on the more indie rock side of that spectrum. But they are going to be opening, and they are a phenomenal band.
Y'all, Cookeville is back, after a dry spell. And these kids that are doing Uncle, man, they're getting into house shows. They want to do a festival. They want to collaborate with you. So I was honored that you were able to swing by the Uncle open mic. Dan is a man about town, but he's a man about business. He's about the business of live music, of art, and the live music experience in Cookie Town. Man, it's a dream come true, really, to be able to hear your music and to know what y'all are doing at Mel's. I can't wait for future collaborations. This is Teacher on the Radio. It's going out originally on 88.5 FM on a Tuesday morning, Thanksgiving week. I archived this stuff on my website, www.teacherontheradio.com. Do you have a website and an Instagram that you can tell people about, Dan?
Sure, yeah. meanmels.com is basically just a platform for us to sell tickets. But if you want to be in the loop and know what shows are happening every weekend, we do 2 or 3 shows a week. Follow us at Mean Mels on Instagram.
And what about your personal your personal places to find you online?
Sure, yeah. All my music is Spotify, Apple, YouTube, everywhere you listen to music. And if you want to follow Instagram, it's at Dan Spencer Metal, Metal.
And Dan Spencer Metal, thanks for coming on Teacher on the Radio. This was an awesome conversation.
Thank you for having me. Really enjoyed it.